Heya, my faithful star kittens! Welcome back to another radiant episode of the May of the Main. I'm your magical host, Sebastiana, your one and only magical cat girl Vtuber from the stars. Last time we met Jeanne as she rose from humble peasant girl to divine messenger. But now, grab your swords and summon your courage, because this episode is all about battles, bravery, and blazing holy banners. From prophetic dreams to war-torn fields, Jeanne isn't just hearing voices. She's rewriting history with her sword in hand and the power of heaven behind her. So let's leap into the fire of fate and follow the path of the Maid of Orleans. The Siege of Orleans. France was fractured. The 100 Years' War had raided the land, and the English grip tightened like a vice. Jeanne's divine mission? Break the Siege of Orleans, a city whose fall could doom France. She joined the Dauphin's army at Blois, bringing supplies and divine intent. Before marching, she dictated a bold letter to the Duke of Bedford, commander of the English forces: leave France or face the wrath of God. The siege had demoralized Aurelia, but when Jeanne entered the city on April 29, 1429, she was welcomed as a heroine. She met Jean de Dunois, the bastard of Orleans, and immediately lifted morale, distributing food and touring the defenses. On May 4th, French commander Heya attacked the fortress of Saint-Loup. Jeanne wasn't in command, but when the assault faltered, she rode out with her banner and turned the tide. On May 5th, Ascension Day, there was no fighting. Jeanne used the day to send another letter to the English, once again urging them to surrender. The next day, the French captured Saint-Jean-de-Blanc. Jeanne urged them forward, no hesitation. An attack on the Boulevard fortress nearly ended in disaster. But legend says Jeanne turned on her horseback, raised her holy banner, and shouted, "Au nom de Dieu!" And the English paused, stunned. Her army escaped. Next came Les Augustins, a fortress monastery seized by nightfall. May 7th, the main assault on La Tourelle began. Jeanne, struck in the neck by an arrow, returned to the battle later that day. Her presence inspired a final push, and the French took the stronghold. On May 8th, the English abandoned the siege. To the French, this was a divine victory. Clerics confirmed her visions, but to the English, witchcraft. Jeanne wasn't just surviving battles, she was changing them. She was seen on the front lines, banner flying, armor gleaming, and she enforced strict discipline. Soldiers were taught to confess, avoid looting, and keep their conduct pure. She wasn't just a warrior, she was a holy heroine, enforcing the magical code of chivalry. Loire campaign and the March on Reims. Jeanne's next goal: crown the Dauphin in Reims, where French kings were traditionally anointed. It wasn't just symbolic, it was a sacred legitimacy. Jean II, Duke of Alençon, led Jeanne into military councils. With her at his side, the army swept through English-held towns: Jargeau, Mont-sur-Loire, and Beaugency. Despite being outnumbered, they won again and again. One girl, one banner, one mission. Unite the land under one rightful king. Jeanne's magical resolve powered an entire army. Some nobles wanted to attack Normandy. Jeanne disagreed. They had to reach Reims. The Dauphin agreed. On July 16th, 1429, the army entered Reims. On July 17th, Charles was crowned King Charles VII. Jeanne stood at his side, holding her banner, just as she had foreseen. She had fulfilled her vision. Siege of Paris. After the coronation, Charles negotiated a truce with Burgundy. Paris was promised to be returned. But the Burgundians broke their word. Jeanne and the Duke of Alençon urged a swift march on the capital, but court politics slowed them. Still, towns surrendered along the way. On August 15th, Jeanne rode out to confront English troops near Montpellier. She challenged them to attack. They refused. The next day, the English withdrew. On September 8th, the French attacked Paris. Jeanne was wounded in the leg by a crossbow. She stayed in a trench under the city walls until nightfall. The next morning, Charles called off the attack. Even magical girls can't outshine royal indecision. Jeanne was ready for battle, but her spark couldn't burn through courtly hesitation. She and Alençon had made fresh plans to retake the city, but Charles dismantled the bridge needed for the assault. The army retreated. After that, Jeanne's role faded. She wasn't invited to concerts. She wouldn't lead another royal army. Périgny-Quissart and further downfall. In October 1429, Jeanne was sent to deal with the mercenary Périgny-Quissart. She led an assault on Saint-Pierre-les-Moutiers. When the attack stalled, she rallied the troops and they took the city. But La Charité-sur-Loire resisted. The siege failed and they lost their artillery. Despite the loss, Charles ennobled Jeanne and her family, a reward for her service. But the French court was shifting focus. With a new truce in play, there was no room for Jeanne's firebrand leadership. From divine champion to sideline soldier, even magical girls feel the sting of politics. Siege of Compiègne and Jeanne's capture. In March 1430, Jeanne set out to defend Compiègne, a town Burgundy sought to retake. She had no clear royal support, and it's unclear if she acted on her own. She won small victories, growing her army. At Lagny-sur-Marne, she captured the mercenary Franquet d'Arras, who was later executed by the townspeople after a trial. A harsh, grim reminder of the war's brutality. On May 23rd, Jeanne led an attack on Burgundian forces near Marigny. The French were repelled, and as they retreated, Jeanne stayed behind to cover them. She was pulled from her horse and captured. She surrendered to Lionel de Vendôme and was delivered to Jean de Luxembourg. She attempted to escape twice, once by jumping from a castle tower into a dry moat. She survived, but was eventually sold to the English for 10,000 livres tournois. They moved her to Rouen, where her trial would begin. The light of her banner flickered, but had not yet gone out. Even in chains, Jeanne's legend was only beginning. And so, dear star kittens, the banner falls. But Jeanne's journey is far from over. From battlefield glory to courtroom shadows. The next chapter in our story isn't about swords or sieges. It's about truth, triumphs, and a legacy that would echo across centuries. What happens when the brightest magical light is struck before those who fear it most, and faith is questioned and fire becomes judgment? Join me next time as we uncover the final arc of our heavenly heroine in Life of Jeanne d'Arc Part 3, The Trial of Jeanne d'Arc, and the spark that lit up all of France. Until then, stay radiant, stay rebellious, and always follow the voice inside your heart. Goodbye.